Okay, so let's move on to last year's NFL brackets and NFL teams and see which teams I believe will not make the playoffs this year. So last year, AFC playoff teams were the Chiefs, the Chargers, the Bengals, the Ravens, the Bills, the Dolphins, and the Jaguars. So the West had two teams represented, the North had two teams, the East had two teams, and the South had one team. In the NFC, we had the 49ers, the Seahawks, the Vikings, the Eagles, the Cowboys, the Giants, and the Bucks, which the West had two teams, the North had one, the East had three, the South had one. By the way, the Buccaneers, that one pissed me off so bad. Sometimes I hate how the NFL does the playoff because there's always that one division that sucks mightily, and the Bucks were below 500. I think there has to be a prerequisite that your team has to at least finish, even if you win your division, you have to finish above 500 to make the playoffs. Not even tied at 500. I don't care if you go 8-1, you can't make the playoffs at that record because it is just a slap to the face that an 8-9 team made the playoff. And then they got their butts whooped anyway in the first round. So the teams I picked that are not going to make the playoffs this year, I don't think, are the Vikings and the Bucks. Obviously the Bucks because, well, Baker Mayfield, that's your quarterback. Uh, and the Vikings, well, you got rid of Dalvin Cook, one of your pivotal offensive players, and you have a quarterback who lives off of play actions um, and little screen passes. So I see that hurting him a lot. I don't. And the NFC North, we're gonna look. I'm gonna go through my predictions for each one, but I don't think the Vikings can win it. I think there's better teams in there than the Vikings. So let's go through my predictions. We're gonna start off with the AFC East. AFC East, I got Buffalo going 13-4, Dolphins going 12-5, Jets going 10-7, and New England going 9-8. And I just don't think, like I said, the Jets are just not going to make the playoffs. I don't think the Aaron Rodgers experiment is going to work this year. I think the defense is going to keep them in a lot of games. Defense might win them most of these games, but I just think the Dolphins are stacked. They have way more offensive firepower than the Jets. I think their defense is up there. It's not as good as the Jets, but it's up there enough to where they can beat the Jets. I think Buffalo, they'll split with the Jets, but they'll be a tough team. I think the Jets will probably demolish the Patriots. I think that's the one team they're going to beat in this division soundly both times. Um, but yeah, so I think in this division it's going to be Buffalo and Dolphins. Um, AFC North, I got the Bengals going 13-4, Ravens 11-6, Steelers 10-7, Browns 9-8. I think Joe Burrow is going to have an amazing season. The Ravens are going to be a pretty good team. They finally got Lamar Jackson some weapons. The Steelers, Mike Tomlin's getting close to putting his team back in the playoffs, making them Super Bowl contenders. Last year, it looked like it was going to be the first time that he was not going to be above 500, and they still made it above 500. The Browns, I think there's still a little bit of ways to go, but they're almost there. But Deshaun Watson's going to be rusty. He's not going to win. Then we got Jacksonville. Jacksonville, sorry. AFC South, Jacksonville, I got them going 11-6. I think this is going to be one of the weakest divisions in the AFC. So I got Jacksonville 11-6, Tennessee Titans 9-8, Colts 5-12, Houston 3-14, which helps out Arizona because they own that pick. AFC West, I got Kansas City going 15-2, Chargers 11-6, Broncos 9-8, and the Raiders 5-12. I mean, like I said, this is gonna how it's gonna be for a while. 15-2 might be ridiculous, but I don't believe they're gonna go 20-0 like Nick, whatever his name is from First Things First. Now let's go to the NFC East. Eagles 14-3. I got the Giants at 12-5. That's right. I think the Giants are going to end up in second. I might be a little bit of a homer, but I think we can steal a game from either the Eagles or Dallas. I think we'll beat up on Washington. Dallas will be 11-6. Washington will be 7-10. I was kind to Washington. I still don't believe in Sam Howell. The NFC North, I got Detroit at 11-6. I think this is their year once and for all. I think they should bring back Barry Sanders and give him an honorary football or something. Do something special for the guy, because for years he carried this team and they never gave them a good quarterback. The best quarterback I remember him having was Scott Mitchell. The Packers 10-7. I think Jordan Love is going to have a pretty decent year. 9-8 for Justin Fields and the Bears, and 6-11 for the Vikings. I know that's going to shock and piss off a lot of people, but that's my predictions. Okay. NFC South. This is one of the weakest divisions. Also, it's the South. I don't know why is the South so weak in both conferences. Like, why? So the Saints 10-7, Tampa Bay 8-9, Falcons 7-10, Carolina 3-14. Now that I look at this, I actually think the Falcons might win more games than Tampa Bay, but Bijou Robinson looks like he could be a good rookie. NFC West. We got San Francisco at 13-4, Seattle at 10-7. We got the Rams at 5-12, and the Cardinals at 2-15. So let's go to the playoff picture. And we're going to start off with the AFC side. So that would leave Kansas City having the bye. First round matchup will be the Florida matchup of the Jaguars versus the Dolphins. We also have Buffalo versus the Ravens and Bengals versus the Chargers. I have the Ravens beating Buffalo. I just don't trust Josh Allen. He seems to be having turnover issues last year, and I don't know. Ever since Dayball left, something's wrong with Josh Allen. I think it's going to continue in the playoffs. So I see him losing. I see the Dolphins beating the Jaguars. I think the Dolphins just have too much firepower. Nothing against Trevor Lawrence. I think he's going to be a great quarterback, but I think Tua has him in this one. The Bengals will beat the Chargers. Why? Because it's the Chargers. They just suck at the playoffs. And I have the Ravens beating Buffalo. So then the matchups would be Kansas City versus the Ravens and Bengals versus the Dolphins. I have Kansas City beating the Ravens, advancing to the AFC Championship again. And the Bengals beating the Dolphins. So it's Kansas City versus the Bengals. And I have the Bengals beating Kansas City and Joe Burrow's back in the Super Bowl. So now for the NFC, we have the Eagles with the bye. You have the Saints versus the Giants. You have the Lions versus the Cowboys. San Francisco versus Seahawks. I have the Saints and the Giants playing. I have the Giants beating them. Detroit versus the Cowboys. I have the Cowboys winning, even though I want Detroit to win so badly. I want them to win so badly. San Francisco versus Seattle. I have San Francisco in divisional round. I love this divisional round matchup. If this happens, I think NFL will be so happy because you have the Eagles versus the Cowboys as a divisional rivalry. Then you got the Giants versus San Francisco. When every time they play in the playoffs, some wacky stuff happens. So I have San Fran beating my Giants. I'm biased here. So San Fran moves on. I got the Eagles beating the Cowboys. Rematch of last year's NFC Championship. And I have the San Francisco 49ers moving on, getting revenge. And we're getting a rematch of Super Bowl that happened, well, 2 Super Bowls that happened in the 80s, but this time with a different outcome. Instead of the 49ers beating the Bengals, I had the Bengals winning the Super Bowl and winning their first Super Bowl and finally getting off the snide of being one of those teams without a Super Bowl, which right now includes the Lions, the Vikings, the Falcons. Falcons, you had your chance. 28-3, man, 28-3. Carolina, Cardinals, Buffalo, Cincinnati, Browns, Jaguars, Titans, Texans, Chargers. So they will no longer be with a 0 next to the number of how many Super Bowls they won. They will win their first Super Bowl. And those are my predictions for the playoffs. Let me know if you agree, if you disagree with anything I've said in this. But I appreciate everything. I appreciate your time. I hope you enjoyed this. I'll see you next time. Love you guys. Peace.